In an email blast recently, you talked about Turkey. You actually bought a Turkish ETF. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, perhaps?
Sure. So it's the Turkey iShares ETF is what it is, and I've actually bought this a few times. I purchased it at $23 in one account not too long ago, and I think my average cost is about $19, and today the value sits somewhere in between those two. I'd say this investment is very deep value, very contrary, and it's not for fair weather investors who easily get scared out of positions because a lot could go wrong here. Inflation in Turkey is running very high. Capital flight is real, meaning dollars or money is leaving Turkey, and the central bank is struggling to prop up the lira. And that's difficult or makes it very difficult for companies and governments in Turkey if they've issued dollars or issued debt in dollars or euros, because now you're collecting revenues in lira, which is depreciating, but you still have to pay back your debtors in euros or whatever, and it's a bad situation. This is what drives some companies and many countries to bankruptcy from time to time.
And what is their inflation rate?
Well, who knows really? I mean, it's hard to say. Uh, but if you look at it, their consumer price inflation, their core inflation, and their food inflation are all reading about 17% as of May. And then their producer price inflation, which is often more volatile, is reading at 38%. So the answer is high. I don't know how high it actually is, but it's high. And what makes it worse is that Erdogan doesn't like high interest rates, and he stacks any central banker who tries to deal with it. So I guess kind of like central bankers here or politicians here, they don't like high interest rates.
Yeah, jeez. Well, I mean, and that even, that whole discussion doesn't even speak to the political, social, and regional military issues of Turkey. So,
Yeah, no kidding. They have plenty of issues there. They have domestic military issues and issues with the Kurdish minority, and then all of their neighbors are frenemies, it seems, like the Russians and the NATO alliance and even the Greeks, and the list goes on. So yeah, they're in a tricky spot there for sure.
so in light of that high inflation rate in Turkey, how have domestic investors stayed protected, or how have they fared through this? I mean, what's sort of been the situation there?
Yeah, that's a good question. If they could own foreign assets, that would have been a good option for them. They would have done well there. Owning commodities, they would have done fine there as well. Owning their own stock market would have done okay. Owning domestic real estate would have done okay. But no matter where they go, it is a bit tricky if you're a citizen in Turkey figuring out where to invest for sure.
Sure. Well, that's a lot of negatives. So where's the positive here?
Yeah, it is a lot of negatives. The main positive is that Turkey is very cheap, and cheap is generally what I like to see first and foremost when I make an investment. And when you dig into it further, the ETF is fairly well diversified across many sectors. The top lines of the companies in the ETF are generally growing, and they're still profitable by and large. So they have been able to pass along their costs to their consumers. And then in the background, I would say, yes, the inflation picture is troubling, as are many of the other things we've talked about, but their demographics are very good, and their economic growth underpinning that is very good. And in fact, it's much better than I would say nearly all their NATO allies I can think of off the top of my head. Many countries in East Asia even don't have the same demographic and economic backdrop that Turkey does. So I like that dynamic. Again, it's not for the faint of heart, and you have to be willing to be wrong on it for sure. But it's something that I'm comfortable with for sure.
Okay. So I'm kind of wondering, was your decision to enter the Turkish ETF somewhat influenced by your past history with the Lasser Gold, which was acquired by SSR Mining and the Kopler deposit in eastern Turkey? I mean, was there any?
Right. That's a good question. I would say yes and no. Yes, because having invested in Turkey through Alasar or SSR Mining, it meant I was a little more familiar with what was going on in Turkey. I'd experienced what it was like over many years, so that made me more comfortable. But then no, because I just like cheap things, and when I see something that is cheap, I will go and take a look. So I would have looked at Turkey regardless of had I invested in Alasar or not, based on the fact that the valuations were low, especially to places in Europe and North America.
Okay. Well, good to know. So